It was a quiet afternoon in a small town, where routines continued at their usual pace. Children played in the streets, residents talked on balconies, and the sound of bicycles echoed along the sidewalks. Everything seemed in perfect harmony until a distant sound began to break the serenity of the place. It was a sound of an ambulance, its sirens piercing the air like a cry of urgency. Residents quickly realized that something serious was happening. The ambulance rushed through the narrow streets, the paramedics inside the vehicle focused on the mission of saving a life. In the back seat, a man was fighting against time, needing immediate help. Every second felt like an eternity, as the vehicle cut corners and weaved through alleys, trying to get to the hospital as quickly as possible. Suddenly, something unexpected happened as they were about to cross one of the city's main streets. The ambulance was forced to brake. Suddenly, there, right in the middle of the path, was a dog. It wasn't just any animal. He was large, with shaggy fur and eyes fixed on the vehicle. As if challenging the passage, the driver honked his horn, but the dog didn't move. The paramedics screamed, trying to pull him away, but he remained motionless, determined not to move. Residents began to gather around the scene, curious to understand what was happening. Some whistled, others tried to call the animal with pieces of food, but nothing seemed to work. It was as if that dog had its own mission, something that no one could understand. Time seemed to freeze. As the tension grew, why was that dog there? Why didn't he get out of the way, even in the face of so many appeals? The surrounding residents began to gather, each with a suggestion to resolve the situation. Some whistled loudly, trying to attract the dog's attention away from the vehicle. Others brought pieces of bread and meat, dangling them in front of the dog, hoping he would give in to his hunger. But nothing helped. He seemed oblivious to all the attempts, as if he were there for a greater reason that none could yet understand. The mystery surrounding the dog's behavior began to intrigue everyone present. Some people murmured among themselves, questioning why he was blocking the ambulance at such a critical moment. Others began to get impatient, worried about the urgency of the patient inside the vehicle. The tension increased with each second, while the animal remained motionless, determined not to move from its position. It was then that someone in the crowd had the idea of calling Dr. Emily, the young veterinarian in town, known for her love for animals and her ability to deal with them. Emily was the ideal person to face this unusual situation. A few minutes later, she arrived at the scene wearing a white coat that contrasted with her calm and confident appearance. Emily approached, slowly studying the dog carefully. While everyone around her was impatient or confused, she noticed something different. The animal's eyes conveyed an unusual intensity, as if it was trying to communicate something that no one could understand. He wasn't there by chance. That was clear to Emily. The way he remained firm, but not aggressive, suggested that something deeper was going on. Calm down, friend, Emily said in a soft, reassuring tone, kneeling down Toby at the dog's level. He didn't growl, he didn't flinch. On the contrary, he tilted his head slightly, as if acknowledging her kindness. His eyes were filled with a mixture of urgency and intelligence that made her hesitate. It was as if he was begging to be heard, as if he had a story to tell that no one had yet realized. As the crowd watched in silence, Emily reached out to him, allowing the animal to feel her presence. He sniffed her hand, and with a slight wag of his tail showed that he trusted her. Emily knew that this wasn't just any dog. There was something about that behavior that went beyond instinct. He was trying to guide people to something only he knew. This dog is not here by chance, she said, loudly, looking at the paramedics in the crowd. Give me a few minutes, I think. Has trying to show us something. Emily, with her calm and patient approach, managed to gain the dog's trust. He, who until then had remained immobile and irreducible, began to relax with slow movements. Emily led him to the sidewalk, clearing the way so that the ambulance could finally continue its mission to save the patient's life. A collective sigh of relief echoed among the residents watching the scene. But for Emily, that was just the beginning. As she watched the dog now sitting next to her, something worried her. He wasn't like the other stray dogs she had encountered. Despite his shaggy fur and tired appearance, there was a bearing about him that demonstrated intelligence and purpose. His attentive eyes never stopped, scanning the street as if he were still on alert. He seemed anxious, but not for food or shelter, but for something Emily could not yet understand. You're not just any dog, are you? Emily muttered to herself. Stroking the animal carefully, He seemed grateful, but at the same time, uneasy it was, as if he was waiting for her to understand what he needed without ignoring her instinct. Emily made a decision right then and there. I couldn't just leave him on the street. Something about that attitude told him that the dog was trying to communicate something important. "Come on, friend, we're going to find out what's going on," she said in a calm voice that seemed to calm not only the dog but also the people around her. Upon taking him to her veterinary clinic, Emily began to examine him. The dog was thin and appeared to have fallen on hard times but did not appear completely abandoned. His teeth were clean, his paws showed signs of wear from someone who'd walked long distances, but he'd habits that revealed training. He responded to simple commands, sat without being asked, and demonstrated unusual discipline for a street dog. Emily knew that he must have had an owner, and even more that that owner could be involved in the mystery behind his behavior the next morning while walking with him through the streets near the clinic. Emily noticed something peculiar. The dog did not walk randomly as others would do. He seemed to know exactly where he wanted to go. Suddenly he stopped in front of an alley, stared at the dark end of the street, and then looked at Emily as if asking her to follow him. Intrigued, she decided to give in. "Okay, I'll trust you," I said. Starting to follow him, he walked with determination, stopping at certain points and sniffing intensely, as if he was looking for something specific. One point he found a torn piece of fabric attached to a fence. Emily picked it up and noticed that it was a part of a jacket with soot marks. The dog looked at her and wagged his tail as if confirming that this was important. As they continued, Emily began to notice a pattern. The cub seemed to guide her top laces that had a clear connection to something bigger. Each stop seemed to tell a part of a story he somehow knew but couldn't verbalize. Emily began to put the piece together. Something about that behavior pointed to a connection between him and someone or something that was yet to be revealed. Determined to understand what the dog was trying to show, Emily realized that the search wasn't just about him. That journey could be connected to a much bigger mystery, and she knew she wouldn't rest until she discovered the truth. Determined to understand more about that enigmatic dog, Emily decided to investigate its origins. He didn't have a collar or any identification, but there was something about his behavior that indicated a significant past. At her clinic, Emily began asking residents who brought their pets if anyone recognized them. At first, the answers were vague. "Maybe it's just a stray dog," said some, but Emily knew it wasn't that simple. It was during a conversation with one of the local firefighters that she got her first concrete clue. "That dog looks familiar," commented the man, observing the animal sitting calmly next to Emily. "He looks a lot like Michael's dog. Do you remember him?" Emily frowned. Michael was a name that everyone knew in the city, a respected firefighter always willing to help, but who had mysteriously disappeared weeks ago. The firefighter continued, "Michael had a puppy named Buddy. He always said he was more than a teammate. He was almost part of the team. Buddy was trained to identify dangers such as fire or substances that caused fires after Michael disappeared." Noon saw the cub again. The words resonated with Emily like a revelation. "So this is Buddy?" he asked, stroking the dog, who seemed attentive to the conversation, as if he understood that they were talking about him. The firefighter nodded. "If so, you have an extraordinary dog on your hands. He and Michael were inseparable." Intrigued, Emily began to connect the dots. Michael had disappeared shortly after, starting to investigate a series of suspicious fires in the city. Although the damage caused by the fires was small, Michael believed that something bigger was behind it. He had a nose for danger and was determined to discover the truth. Now it seemed that Buddy, his faithful companion, was trying to continue what Michael had started in. The following days, Emily began to observe more closely the places where Buddy took her. It was evident that he was not walking without purpose. Each stop had a meaning, and Emily began to realize that they were places linked to the fires that Michael was investigating. There was a pattern: an alley here, an abandoned house there, and even a warehouse for materials. Every place had soot marks or other signs that the fire had passed through there. He's retracing Michael's path, Emily concluded one morning as Buddy stopped in front of an old warehouse there. They found another clue, a charred piece of paper with notes that Emily was unable to decipher, but which she knew were important. Buddy seemed determined not To let the clues go unheeded, the connection between the dog and his missing owner grew clearer every day. Buddy wasn't just a faithful dog, he was the key to finding out what had happened to Michael. Emily, with the help of the dog, was determined to follow the path he indicated, even if it meant confronting something dangerous. Meanwhile, the mystery surrounding Michael and the fires in the city deepened, and Emily knew she was approaching something big. Guided by Buddy's enigmatic behavior, Emily decided to completely trust her intuition and the signs the dog gave her the next morning, equipped with a backpack containing basic items and a notebook. For notes she prepared to follow the dog on a new journey through the city. Buddy seemed to understand that he was in charge, walking with determination through streets and alleys as if each movement was part of a larger plan. The first stop was at an old warehouse, apparently abandoned. The place, with soot-covered walls and a lingering smell of smoke, seemed to hold memories of a recent fire. While exploring the space, Emily found an old fireman's hat thrown in a corner. Picking up the object, she noticed the initials FS embroidered on the flap. His heart sped up. There was no doubt it belonged to Michael. Buddy, next to her, shook his butt slowly, as if confirming that they were on the right path. "We close, aren't we, kid?" Emily asked, stroking the dog's head. He responded with a light bark before beginning to sniff the ground again, guiding her out of the shed and towards her next destination. The second stop was at City Park, in an area that was not very frequented. There was an unlit fire there, surrounded by burned pieces of wood. Emily knelt down to examine the remains, noticing that the fire appeared to have been lit recently. Something felt off around the campfire. There were footsteps and a chemical smell that she couldn't identify. Buddy circled around, sniffing intensely, as if absorbing every detail. Emily wrote down her observations in her notebook, certain that this place was also part of the puzzle. As the day progressed, Buddy took her to an old abandoned house on the outskirts of town. The windows were broken, and the exterior walls showed dark stains, as if a fire had tried to consume the structure. But to no avail. Inside, Emily found pieces of burned fabric and some partially destroyed wooden boxes. Next to them was a small rusty tool that looked like it had been used to manipulate flammable substances. The scene was disturbing, but Buddy seemed determined. He sniffed vigorously and looked at Emily as if asking her not to ignore what was before them. While writing down the details, Emily realized that each place had something in common. They were all points marked by fire. More than that, they were places that seemed connected by a line of investigation that Michael had started before he disappeared. Buddy's behavior made it clear that he was retracing his owner's steps, as if he knew that these clues were crucial to revealing the truth. Emily began to connect the pieces. Michael wasn't just investigating isolated fires. There was something bigger at stake. The hat found in the shed, the suspicious bonfire in the park, and the marks on the abandoned house all pointed to a pattern that Emily still couldn't completely decipher. However, one thing was certain: Buddy was guiding her towards something important, something that could answer the questions that had plagued the city since Michael's disappearance. "It's okay, Buddy. Let us continue," said Emily, feeling a mixture of anxiety and determination. The dog, as if he understood his words, perfectly barked softly and began walking again. They still had much to discover, and Emily knew that every step alongside Buddy would bring them closer to unearthing the truth behind the mystery. Buddy looked more determined than ever as he led Emily through the streets and then out of the city. His steps were steady, and he often looked back as if making sure she followed him. Emily felt that they were getting close to something important. The path became increasingly isolated, passing through empty lots and surrounded by trees that seemed to hold silent stories. The tension in the air was palpable, and every noise on the trail made Emily hold her breath. But she knew she had to trust the dog's instinct. After almost half an hour, walking, Buddy stopped in front of an old abandoned warehouse. The structure was immense and covered in moss, with weathered walls and broken windows that looked like empty eyes staring into space. Emily felt a chill when she saw the half-open metal door creaking slightly in the wind. Buddy barked once, as if announcing that they had arrived at the right place. He then looked at her, his intense eyes seeming to beg her to continue. "It's here, isn't it?" Emily murmured, more to herself than to her. Buddy walked through the door without hesitation, and Emily quickly grabbed her flashlight from her backpack before following him. The inside of the warehouse was dark and stuffy, with a strong smell of damp mixed with the bitter odor of burning wood. The flashlight. Light revealed piles of old boxes and rusted tools scattered across. The floor buddy hurried forward occasionally, stopping to sniff the ground as if confirming something. Suddenly Emily heard a faint sound coming from somewhere further ahead. She stopped, her senses on high alert, and held her breath to hear better. It was a moan, weak and distant, almost muffled by the heavy silence of the warehouse. Michael, he called, his voice filled with a mix of hope and fear. Buddy responded with a firm bark, quickening. His pace towards the sound. Emily followed him, her heart beating faster by the second in the far corner of the warehouse, lit only by the beam of her flashlight. Emily found Michael. He was lying on the ground, visibly weak and bruised but alive. His face had deep cuts, and his arm was improvised, bandaged, probably with pieces of his own shirt. Buddy immediately ran to him, licking his face enthusiastically and emitting small whines that brimmed with relief and excitement. Michael opened his eyes with difficulty, a weak smile appearing on his lips. "Buddy, you did it," he murmured, his voice hoarse and barely audible. Emily quickly knelt beside him, checking his vitals. "Ass," he fought back her tears. "You're going to be fine," he said firmly, although the lump in his throat betrayed his concern. Picking up her phone, she called emergency services, asking for immediate help. As they waited for the ambulance, Michael began to speak, his voice weak and broken but full of urgency. He told how he had been ambushed while investigating the mysterious fires that had been ravaging the city. The clues he'd found indicated that someone was deliberately setting the fires, and he believed that the warehouse held crucial evidence to solve the mystery. "They wanted to shut me up," said Michael, closing his eyes. "For a moment they left me here thinking no one would find me. But I knew Buddy would come. He always knows where to find me." Buddy remained next to Michael, lying close to him, as if he were protecting him from any danger that might yet arrive. Emily felt a lump in her throat as she watched that scene. Buddy wasn't just a cub, he was there. Reason why Michael was still alive despite all the challenges. Buddy had trusted his instincts and guided Emily directly to the place where Heroism was. Shortly afterwards, the red and blue lights of the ambulance illuminated. The dark interior of the warehouse. Paramedics rushed to stabilize Michael. While Emily explained what had happened, she watched silently as they placed Michael on a stretcher, with Buddy walking alongside, refusing to leave his owner's side. The connection between the two was something extraordinary, something that words could hardly describe. While Michael was taken to the hospital, Emily stood at the entrance of the warehouse, watching the ambulance disappear into the distance. His heart was full of gratitude for Buddy, who never gave up on finding his owner. She knew that what she had witnessed, there was something rare, something that showed the true meaning of loyalty and unconditional love. Over the next few days, as Michael recovered, Buddy's story began to spread throughout the city. People were impressed by the dog's determination and the way he had led Emily to the place where Michael was trapped. But he wasn't just a hero, he was living proof that animals have a unique ability to love and protect those who are important to them. "You're not just a dog, Buddy," Emily said in a moment of contemplation, stroking his head as Harris stood beside her. "You are a true hero." And Buddy, as if he understood every word, looked at her with his shining eyes, filled with an unconditional love that seemed to say, "I only did what needed to be done." In the days following Michael's rescue, the pieces of the mystery began to fall into place in unexpected ways. During his recovery in the hospital, Michael finally had the strength to share everything he knew about the fire she had been investigating. He explained to Emily and the local firefighters that, over the course of weeks, he had noticed pattern in small fires spread across the city. At first glance, they looked like accidents, but something about the affected areas and the burned materials caught his attention. These fires weren't random, Michael stated, his voice still weak but firm. They were testing something, trying to see how far they could go without arousing suspicion. Michael had discovered evidence that the fires were caused with a specific chemical accelerant, something that was not used in common accidents. During his investigations, he began to suspect that someone in the city itself was behind the acts, using abandoned places as a laboratory for his experiments. Clues led him to the warehouse where he was found. There, he found crucial evidence, samples of the chemical and tools used to manipulate the materials before he was ambushed and left for dead. But the real shock came when Michael mentioned Buddy's behavior. He was with me throughout the investigation, whenever I found one of these locations. Buddy would react intensely as if he could sense something. I couldn't immediately sense. He's trained to detect accelerants, and that made him indispensable, even when I was left in that warehouse house. I knew Buddy would do something to save me. It was then that Emily began to remember the incident with the ambulance and the man who was being taken as a patient. Michael, she said with a tone of urgency. Buddy was blocking the ambulance that day, and he seemed very focused on the man inside. Do you think he could be trying to tell us something about himself? Michael wasn't for a moment, assimilating the information. It's possible, he finally replied, if the man was carrying traces of the same accelerant that Buddy recognized. During our investigations, he could have identified the scent Bud Heck knew that man was involved. The revelation fell like a bomb. Emily immediately remembered the strong burning smell she smelled in the alley where the dog first guided her. Everything made sense. The man taken away by the ambulance, supposedly an accident victim, was in fact the arsonist Michael was trying to stop. He had been burned while handling chemicals during one of the fires, and his condition put him in the position of being rescued, ironically, by the very city. He was trying to harm firefighters, and local police took action, immediately based on Michael's information and the evidence collected by Emily and Buddy. They went to the hospital to interrogate the man. At first, he denied all accusations, but chemical evidence found on his clothes and statements from Michael and Emily linked him directly to the fires. He was responsible for weeks of destruction and fear, and now, thanks to Buddy's unwavering loyalty, he would finally be brought to justice. Buddy wasn't just trying to protect Michael. Emily concluded as she petted the dog he was trying to prevent the culprit from escaping. He knew what was at stake from the beginning. The city of Springfield was shocked to learn the truth. Buddy's story, which had already moved everyone, gained even more depth. Not only did he save his owner's life, but he also helped solve a mystery that could have caused more harm to the community. Michael, now in full recovery, made a point of telling everyone that Buddy was the true hero of the story. It's not just a dog. Michael said in emotional interviews, he's my partner, my savior. He's the reason I'm here today and why this city is safer. Buddy received a special honor from the city, including a Medal of Bravery presented by the mayor himself. Meanwhile, Emily, who'd been instrumental in Buddy's discovery and care, became his second guardian, an inseparable friend who would continue to care for him and ensure that his story was never forgotten. What began as an act of apparent stubbornness, a dog blocking an ambulance, turned into a journey of courage, loyalty, and justice, reminding everyone that heroes can emerge from the most unexpected places, and that the strength of a dog's bond and its owner can overcome any obstacle. With the arsonist finally arrested, the city of Springfield could breathe a sigh of relief. The person responsible for the fires, who had caused so much fear and destruction, was now in police custody, thanks to the evidence discovered by Michael and Emily and, of course, Buddy's tireless determination. The news spread quickly, not just throughout the city, but throughout the region. The story of a dog who had defied all odds to save his owner and help solve a heartbreaking mystery had become the main story. Michael, after days of recovery in the hospital, began to gain strength again during visits. Buddy never stopped being by his side, lying at the foot of the bed or looking closely at his owner, as if to make sure he was safe. You never gave up on me, did you, partner? Michael said with a choked voice while stroking the dog's head. Buddy, as always, just wagged his tail, showing that his loyalty was absolute. The city decided that something needed to be done to celebrate Buddy's heroic act. It wasn't just an ordinary dog. He'd demonstrated courage, intelligence, and a unique bond with Michael that inspired everyone. Thus, the mayor of Springfield announced that he would organize a special ceremony to honor the dog, who in his determination not only saved a life, but also brought the entire community together. On the day of the ceremony, the city's main square was packed. People of all ages attended, many of them accompanied by their own dogs, inspired by Buddy's story. There were posters and banners with messages like, "Buddy, our hero," and "Thank you, Buddy." The atmosphere was one of celebration and gratitude. In the center of the stage, Emily and Michael were waiting with Buddy, who, although not understanding exactly what was happening, seemed happy. With all the attention, the mayor took the stage and began his speech. "Today, we're here to recognize a true hero," he said, pointing to Buddy. This dog showed us all that loyalty and courage can come from the most unexpected places. Buddy not only saved his owner but also helped protect our city. And bring justice. It is with great honor that we declare Buddy an honorary citizen of Santa Susana. The audience gave a standing ovation as a medal of bravery was placed around Buddy's neck. He seemed confused by all the noise, but he was wagging his tail, happily as if he knew it was important. Michael leaned over and hugged his faithful companion with tears in his eyes. Emily beside them was also moved, proud to have been part of that incredible story. The ceremony ended with a round of applause and an impromptu parade, where Buddy led the walk alongside Michael and Emily, followed by the townspeople and their own dogs. It was a celebration not only of Buddy's heroism, but also of the power of the bond between humans and animals at the end of the day. As the square returned to its usual state and people returned to their homes, Michael, Emily and Buddy sat on a bench watching the sunset. "You changed everything, boy," Michael said, petting Buddy. "Not only did it save me, but it showed everyone what it really means to be loyal," Emily agreed. Smiling, Buddy's loyalty is not just inspiring. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we can find light in the most unexpected places. Buddy's story has been told and retold, gaining prominence in newspapers, television, programs, and even on social media. It has become a symbol of courage, loyalty, and the special bond between humans and animals, inspiring people around the world to value and respect their own four-legged companions. Even more, in the end, Buddy wasn't just a hero. He was living proof that love and loyalty can overcome any challenge, unite communities, and transform lives. St. Susan would never forget the dog who saved the day, and more importantly, showed everyone that true heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they just have four legs and a heart full of love. Buddy's story teaches us a powerful lesson about loyalty, courage, and the impact an animal can have on our lives. Bud, he wasn't just a cube. He was a living symbol of unwavering devotion. Just when everything seemed lost, he didn't give up on Michael. With his determination and intelligence, he not only saved his owner's life, but also helped bring justice to an entire community. He reminded us that heroes can emerge at the most unexpected times, and that even the smallest gesture of loyalty can have a huge impact. The relationship between Mike and Buddy is a testament to the special bond between humans and animals. Anyone who has been lucky enough to share their life with a pet knows how faithful companions they can be, protectors and even saviors in difficult times. Buddy showed us that these bonds go beyond the ordinary. They're made of pure love and a trust that overcomes any adversity. This story also makes us reflect on how animals perceive the world in a unique way, often capturing what we humans cannot see. Whether protecting, guiding, or simply offering comfort in difficult times, they have a special role in our lives, and Buddy is proof of that. He teaches us that even when words fail, action and presence can say more than any speech. Now we want to know, what did you think of this exciting story? Have you ever had a pet that changed your life? Any moment when you felt like he was more than just a companion but a true hero? Share your experience in the comments. We'd love to hear, and if you were as touched as we were by Buddy's story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. This way you don't miss any exciting stories like this. See you in the next video. And remember, heroes come in all shapes, sizes, and even four legs.